Well, actually, we started it last week, but we'll start over again. Basi so halacha base. Basi so shnisis lekoin. A regular Israelis, right? She's Yisrael who married a Kohen. V'chnislo, and she brings them bein avdei milog, whether they're slaves which are milog, meaning that she gets them back at the end of the marriage. Bein avdei tzom bars, or slaves which remain with the husband at the end of the marriage. Harei yochlu b'truma, they're allowed to eat truma. Okay? Ubas Kohen shnisis Yisrael. Now the other way. She's a Kohen, and she married Yisrael. So again, no matter what type of slave, whether slaves that go back to or slaves that remain, this is they can't eat truma because that's the status now belongs to the husband vis-a-vis the right to eat truma. The Mishnah continues. A Yisrael married a Kohen, and he died. Now this is a case where he was a Kohen but he died. And she's pregnant. Her avadim should not eat truma. Why? Because her fetus, who's not yet a Kohen, because he's not a Kohen till he's born, has rights to the slaves. He inherits them, and therefore they're considered to be slaves of the fetus. The fetus is not yet a Kohen until he's born. They can't eat truma, right? Because the fetus renders them unfit to eat, veino ma'achil, and cannot give them the right to eat. The Rabbi Yossi. Amar lei, so they said to him, since you testified to us, Abbas Yisrael Kohen, on a regular Yisrael who marries a Kohen, Abbas Kohen, so too, the same thing should apply where the wife is a Kohen and the husband is a Kohen. And the fetus also will be a Kohen. But right now, the fetus is not yet a Kohen, right? Because he's still a fetus. So even though she's pregnant, she's a Kohen. She's pregnant with a Kohen's child. But since now she's pregnant, the slaves cannot eat trum nechel kosher uber because of the portion of the fetus. Okay? Is that a clear cut?
If she's a Kohen, so don't the slaves eat truma?
So says Gemara, Amr Rabbi said, you actually think like a Yerushalmi now, because the Bavli doesn't hold that way, but the Yerushalmi here does. It drove me nuts today because I didn't see anybody who actually speaks about it at any great length. Well, actually, that's not true. People speak at great length, but they say things which I find difficult. But this is what Yerushalmi says. Amr Lezer says, Kini Masni. So this is the way to read our Mishnah. Avadeha yochlu. Her slaves can eat. In other words, avodim avdei milog can't eat. Not avdei tzom barzo, right? Slaves which belong to her, which she retains as part of her dowry, they can eat truma. Avodav lo yochlu. His slaves can't eat. The lo kain, if you didn't say that, you'll come out with an impossible distinction, which would be hiocheles. She's allowed to eat because she's a kohenes, right? We're talking about a woman who was either a woman who was married to a Kohen. We're talking about a case where she's married to a Kohen. Not the case where she's a Kohenes married to Yisrael. Either Kohenes married to a Kohen, or even a Yisraelis married to a Kohen. But not if she's a Kohenes married to Yisrael. Because even though she is herself a Kohenes, as long as she remains part of her husband's house, which she does as long as she's pregnant and she has a fetus and then a child, she can't eat truma. In order to be able to eat truma, she has to go back to her father's house, and that's only possible if she has no children by her husband who is Yisrael. So therefore, as long as she's... right now, since she can eat truma herself, since she was the wife of a Kohen, and still has not returned to her father's house, so therefore her avodim must be able to eat. Avodav lo yochlu. His slaves cannot eat because they are avdeh, meaning the slaves which belong to him because they're tzom barzel, or from their father's estate, right? So that they can't eat. The law again, the lo kain hiocheles, otherwise should be eating v'avodav ein ochlim, v'avodeh ein ochlim, and her slaves not be eating. So again, this is Yerushalmi and not Bavli. The Bavli holds, as long as you have a fetus, you're up, the avodim can't eat, and she can't eat. Nobody can eat. Not her and not the fetus, not the avodim. because the fetus makes her possible, ve'eno machil. The Yerushalmi here is still drawing distinction between she and her slaves versus the fetus's slaves, which means the ones which are not part of her dowry. But the Bavli does not hold that way. Okay, Rabbi Yoshi B'Shem Rabbi Yochanan said, Imizu, if afilu hi lo tochel. Rabbi Yoshi, like the Bavli says, named Rabbi Yochanan, if it's from this, afilu hi lo tochel. You know what? If you want to, I disagree with you, Rabbi Elazar. I hold, again, like the Bavli, that even she can't eat because the ubar stymies her from eating. Her fetus stymies her from eating as well. Rabbi Chagai, kum Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Chagai said in front of Rabbi Yossi, lo Rabbi Yochanan polik. It's not true. Rabbi Yochanan does not argue. Elamizu afili lo tochel. Rabbi Yochanan really holds like the Yerushalmi. He was a Yerushalmi. Right? He really holds like the Yerushalmi that she can eat, and her slaves can eat. But he's saying from our Mishnah, it's no proof for that. Because our Mishnah might be interpreted that the ubar, that the fetus impedes not just avodim, but also her from eating. But he also holds the halacha that, in fact, she may eat, again, when she's married to a Kohen, or as the widow now of a Kohen, she may eat, and her avodim may eat as well. Okay? So a case came from Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Amar said, go out and see how the community conducts itself. Rabbi Shua ben Levi said, how can you look at the community? Isn't this a halachic issue? It's a halachic issue. What are you going to look at the community? You have to pass in a shiloh, right? So rather the pshat is like this. Any halacha which is not clear and based in literally it's weak in court. You don't know what its qualities are, meaning what the halacha is. Go and see how the community conducts itself, and conduct yourself that way. And we saw that the community indeed conducts itself like the Bavli, which is that neither she eats nor the slaves eat. So even though the strict letter of the law would be that she could eat and her slaves eat, and the fetus's slaves can't eat, but the way people conduct themselves is that people do not eat, neither she nor her slaves, as long as she is pregnant. Okay?
Is that is Yerushalmi?
You know, I want to take something back before you ask. Moshe say, not about her, but that her slaves don't eat. Sorry, they don't say anything about her. That the slaves don't eat. Lo means the slaves don't eat. We don't know exactly about her, but I'm sorry. Yes?
Is this more prevalent in Yerushalmi about going out to the community and see how they can...
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't think the Yerushalmi brings it down in this scenario, but I don't think it's more prevalent in Yerushalmi. You would think so, but I don't think that that's the case. I understand, why you're asking, but I don't think that's necessarily the case. This teaches us it should be instead of eved, eino ubor posas mishu roy lechol. The strict letter of the law, whether the women are eat or not, or whether avadi eat or not, is not relevant. That since she is suitable to eat, because is the widow of a Kohen, so the ubar cannot render her unfit because she is independently capable of eating. Again, this is Yerushalmi. Bavli doesn't hold that way. But the ubar, the fetus, cannot allow the slaves to eat who do not have the right to eat on their own right. So they only have the right to eat because they are property. So even though the ubar will eventually be a Kohen, since right now the fetus is not a Kohen, it's only a fetus, it cannot give them the right to eat. Tani, we learned Rabbi Shmuel, it should be Rabbi Yossi Mishum Aviv. Okay, there ain't no Abayi in the Yerushalmi. So it's Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yossi Mishum Aviv. Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yossi, named his father, said, Hoya Bas. Now, if the Shaitar is to change the gears, I don't know if it's necessary, we change it to Hoysola Bas. If she had a daughter besides the fetus, Ma'achelas, she's allowed to eat, then the Avodim are allowed to eat the Truma. Now, there's a cool case. There's a halacha by Nechasim Muatim, where there's very little property in the inheritance. So in that case, even though the sons are supposed to get the property, nevertheless, the daughters get it, and the sons have to go back, and that's called nechasim muatim. When there's very little property, according to Rabbanan, the rice, of course, there's no inheritance for a daughter. Daughter doesn't inherit everything, but the rice. When there's very little property, so then the daughter inherits. She's there, the daughter gets it, and the boys have to go back. It was like, progressive social legislation on the part of Chazal. So they made this legislation. So therefore, if there's not much property left, and she's pregnant, and she has a daughter, survive an extant daughter, so then the avodim get to eat, because no matter what, if the child is a son, so the property is going to go anyway to this girl, because there isn't that much to go around, right? So she gets it. And if the child is a daughter, so the way the Mepharshim explains, also the Bavli says this, Chazal didn't make a takana for fetuses. In other words, Chazal gave daughters the rights over the property, right? But they only gave live daughters the rights over the property, not fetuses. So therefore, no matter what, it belongs to, all the property in this case belongs to the daughter. Whether the fetus is a son, and it will belong to the daughter even after the son is born, or whether the fetus is a daughter. And when she's born, they'll both have to split it up, but right now she's not here, so Chazal didn't make a takana for somebody who's not here. So therefore, in that case, the slaves get to eat truma as the property of the daughter. And that's basically what the Gemara explains. Rabbi Yerushalmi Yevamos said, she can take it for her sustenance, since there's very little property. Now, says the Gemara, if that's the case, wait a minute. So what about she herself? Forget about she has a daughter. She's the wife of a Kohen, right? And she gets fed too, right? The halacha is that a widow, as long as she lives in her husband's house, she gets fed, right? So therefore, forget about the daughter. She deserves the avodim. She has the right to the avodim, right? Because she can sell them in order to realize her money for food. So therefore, I don't understand why you have to say that the daughter is the one which allows the avodim to eat, even she herself. So it says the Gemara, interesting thing. No, we don't look at that. You know why? Because the moment she demands her ksuva, she's l'abed, and it's a typo here, she's l'abed mizon aseh. The halacha is really so much, we'll get into ksuvas later on. The halacha is that if a woman continues to get fed in her deceased husband's house, as long as she doesn't demand her ksuva. The moment she demands her ksuva, she loses the right to any further sustenance. Okay? This is true now. This is true nowadays. It's an amazing thing, because nowadays, of course, we don't enforce this. But if you think, if somebody has, if a child has an elderly mother who's a widow, right? It's not a child, right? Somebody has an elderly mother who's a widow, right? So she really doesn't own anything. The son owns everything, right? What is the right of the mother? Only to live in the deceased father's house and get supported, right? If the mother then demands her ksuva, she has the right to a ksuva, whatever paltry sum that actually is, and then you can kick her out of the house. Your own mother, right? Because she doesn't own anything in her deceased husband's house, right? She's just there at the grace of Chazal, literally speaking, by they're allowing her to stay there and get her food. But that's as long as she doesn't demand her ksuva. The moment she demands her ksuva, she's out. So since the moment she demands her ksuva out, the food, I mean, this logic that the avodim are under lien to her, that she could sell them for food, is something which she could terminate at any time. But since she could terminate at any time, it's not considered to be really an ownership on her part, because if she terminated her rights by demanding her ksuva, the avodim would go free, right? Not free, but the avodim would no longer be under her jurisdiction. So therefore, if that's the case, it's rather under the jurisdiction of the fetus or with next of kin, or wherever it is. So therefore, she doesn't have the right to claim them as her own, because she doesn't have an ongoing right to food. The daughter has an ongoing right to the property. Chazal didn't say you only, you at some point, by claiming something else, you renounce it. When they gave the daughters the chosim watim, they gave it to her on an ongoing basis. without any explicit termination. So therefore, the avodim belong. It's in essence, the avodim belong to her. They're under the daughter's permanent jurisdiction. But by the woman who's an almana, so they're not under her permanent jurisdiction. It might terminate at any time, and therefore she can't allow them to eat truma because of her jurisdiction. Okay. Now the Gemara asks a very interesting basic question here. First, says v'kasha, I have a kasha like this. It should be instead of ksuva, according to Muslim farshim here, truma. Truma, I shouldn't say both. Korban Eidah and Ridbaz. The Pnei Moshe, no, Korban Eidah and Shai Teres to throw. The Pnei Moshe doesn't change it, but I'm going to go with the Korban Eidah who changed it. The kasha is like this. Truma is midvar toicha, right? Umazon abanas, and that the daughters get the nechasim muatim midivreim d'Rabbanan. V'divrein okin dvar Torah, something which the Rabbanan divrein from their words, is that uprooted dvar Torah? Meaning, how can her ownership of the chasim muatim give the right for them to eat truma? Her ownership of the chasim muatim is only a rabbinic ownership, and the kohanim have to eat truma. I'm sorry, the kohanim, the avodim. In order to eat truma, truma's daraisa, right? So how does the rabbinic ownership give them the right to eat truma, which is daraisa? So it says, no, you're right. But rather, top of my mouth and Ralph, we're going according to the opinion that holds that in our day and age, actually, right in times of the second base of Mikdash, the Bnei Yisrael accepted truma upon themselves. They weren't required to give truma, right? They gave truma because they accepted it at Takana the Rabbanan. So truma is manazeh, truma in our day and age is the Rabbanan. So since it's the truma's Rabbanan, and the ownership of so therefore ownership of avodim, which is only the Rabbanan, can work in order to be able to allow an individual to eat truma, which is only the Rabbanan. Okay, so the Rabbanan works at the Rabbanan. Ashkechas Am Rabbi Yishmael Rabbi Yossi v'choluk al, it should be aviv. So comes out Rabbi Yishmael Rabbi Yossi argues on his father, as we'll see as this plot unfolds. Dam Rabbi Simon b'shem Chilfi. Rabbi Simon said the name of Chilfi. Chilfi is Ilfa in the Bavli. Rabbi Yishmael Rabbi Yossi v'Ubar Akfar. I assume it's Rabbi Yossi Akfar, though I'm not sure. These three people, Rabbi Yishmael Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Akfar, Nimnu, they voted al. There's a major typo here. It says avich should be avir, airspace. They voted on airspace of Ashkelon for tiaru, and they said it's Torah. Now, as you know, when you enter Chutz La'aretz from Eretz Yisrael, you become Tamei. So they took a vote: should Ashkelon be considered to be Eretz Yisrael or Chutz La'aretz vis-a-vis this Tumah? And they came to the conclusion they voted it should be part of Eretz Yisrael, even though it's not. Ashkelon is not part of Eretz Yisrael. But they voted as part of Eretz Yisrael vis-a-vis Tumas Eretz Amim, that it shouldn't become time for going there because it's so close to Eretz Yisrael. And the reason why they did this is because the V'tiaru, they made a Torah as Pinchas Ben because they had a tradition, they read Pinchas Ben Yair, which allowed them to come to this conclusion. What did Pinchas Ben Yair say? He said, Sha'amar, it should be L'sidki. We used to go down to the marketplace of granaries. That's Sidke in Aramaic. The Sidke shel Ashkelon. We would go down to the marketplace in Ashkelon, the Lochem Chitim, buy grain, buy wheat, Loin Lereno, and come up to our own city, the Tovlim, and go to the mikvah, V'ochlim b'trumasenu, and eat truma. Now, if Ashkelon did of Chutz La'aretz, mamish. So how many days do you think a person become Tamei if we're going to Chutz La'aretz? Do you remember why Chutz La'aretz is Tamei? Who remembers the Chutz La'aretz Tamei?
They don't bury their bodies.
Right, so how long should you become Tamei if you go to Chutz La'aretz?
1 day.
A week? 7 days, right? 7 days, because Tumas Meis is 7 days, right? Yet here, Rabbi Pinchas Ben Yair was a Kohen, said that when they went down to Ashkelon, they used to go to the mikveh that day and eat Truma that night. So obviously, now obviously there must have been some Tumah, so the Tumah that they say was involved is the Tumah of Zov, because a Goy has a din of a Zov, right? And when he used to go in contact with the Kohen, he used to have a din of Zov, And if you come kind of Lusov, you're telling me from 1 day till nightfall. But you're not telling me for 7 days. Obviously, they only tell you 7 days if you have Tumas Eretz Amim. And obviously there must not have been Tumas Eretz Amim here because they weren't Matame them they weren't Matame for 7 days, only until nightfall. So from this, based on Rabbeinu Zbayar's testimony that they ate Truma right after nightfall, they came to the conclusion that there can't be Tumas Eretz Amim here. There can't be the Tuma of Chutz La'aretz, right? So L'Mocha, they want to take it further. L'Mocha, the next day, they got together again, this synod here, and Bikshuli Manas Alav Lepotru Min HaMaisos, they wanted to get together and exempt Ashkelon from Meiser as well. Umasha Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi Syoder. Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi pulled away his hands, Shemistamich Ben Kfar, with which he was leaning on Ben Kfar. Now the Korban Pnei Moshe take this literally. They say he was leaning on Ben Kfar, or he had his hands, his arm interlocked, and he drew away from him. He drew back. But I don't know if that's necessary to say that. But it could be it's just allegorical, that he was tight with Ben Akfar. They were getting along well and passing the same things, but now he stopped. So Amar Lo, Rabbi Shimon ben Yossi said to Ben Akfar, B'ni, my son, Lama Lo Amarta, why don't you ask me? Lama Lo Amarta li, Mivnei Mama Shachtis Yadecha. Why don't you ask me, why did you pull away your hands? In other words, why did you stop posketing like us? And why did you not support us when we wanted to say that it's possible from Truvas and Meisers? And I would have told you had you asked me this question. It's supplying with the question, now it's supplying with the answer. I would have told you. Yesterday, Aniti Mesi, Vaniti Arti. Yesterday, it's about the Rabbanans. By the Rabbanans, they're a principle of Hey Momru, V'Hei Momru, right? They said it's also. They can say when it's mutter. So, vis-a-vis that, he says, I could have said, I'm a Tameh, right? Because we made up the Tumah of Eretz Amim, and I'm a Tar, that I'll make up where it doesn't apply, which is legitimate, that I could have done. However, Akshav today, when we deal with Truma, Ani Omer L'cha, I can tell you, Shemani Skabsha, Sheni Skabsha Dvar Torah. Maybe Ashkelon was legitimately conquered, at least by the people who left Egypt, as area of Eretz Yisrael. Hechani Poitrim Dvar Torah, what right do we have as the Rabbanan to come and exempt the Doraisa? So therefore, it comes out to be an interesting thing. Rabbi Shimon ben Yossi argues on his father, on the name of his father. He said Bantach that Trumas Meiser is Manas the Rabbanan, but by virtue of the fact that he clearly is not allowing Ashkelon to be considered to be Chutzarts vis-a-vis Truma because he's afraid of having it Truma be Doraisa, so he must tell Trumas Meiser Manas are Doraisa. Okay, we actually pass that Trumas Meiser Manas are Rabbanan. That's the way the Rambam Paskins, better call correctly.
In order for it to be derisa, doesn't have to under certain requirements.
Rov Yershvel, most of the inhabitants of Eretz Yisrael. Right. So maybe he held not that way. That's the way we paskin. I don't know if he held that way.
Did we get the situation with Ashkelon being part of Eretz Yisrael, Shemitah and Shvis?
By Gittin. Ashkelon to Eretz Yisrael are Gittin. Right? But then right. And people know to write a get properly there, but it's not. It's Eretz Yisrael. It's just precisely the point. It's not Eretz Yisrael itself. Okay. Yeah, I want you to know Yosef Davis just came back from Israel.
Yeah.
And no, I think it was Yosef Davis. Maybe it was Sholi, his son-in-law. He said they're building much more under Barak than under Netanyahu. So wherever you go, they're building more and more and more. In the Shtachim, yeah. He said. What? Yes, Article New York Times a couple of weeks ago about it.
Well, New York Times is going to.
Well, but that's the point. The point is that Barak can get away with much more than Netanyahu could.
Going back to this point about Romeo Shvel, the Korban cites other things that he has to be.
He doesn't say the Schakol Shvatim, does he?
No.
Because that's made by Shemitah.
Eretz B'Yad Yisrael.
Yeah.
Ve'ein aleim shum melch v'sar me'umos.
Yeah, well,
that certainly didn't exist then.
Yeah, I don't remember that condition. I just remember Rov Yisrael Leh. I mean, from the Rambam, that's all I remember. But, could be. There's Truvas Tzitz Eliezer in Chelik Yud. He wants to say that Bisman is Truvas Maisis Daraisa, because now Rovish,
Because of Medina.
because of the
I'm
state,
wondering, what will be the status if you have a cabinet?
not because of Zionist reasons.
Yeah, a cabinet minister who's an heir.
What? What?
What happens if you have a cabinet?
What difference does it make cabinet ministers now?
Says, "Ve'ein aleim shum melech v'sar me'ha'umah."
No, that's okay. That goes, but whenever you have the constitutional government, Allah assumes that you go by majority. So if the majority are Jews, you're okay. I think that's my recollection. Okay, says Gemara. Check and see if your uncle has something on it. He might have written on that in his sefer.
Read stuff.
Yeah. May mistake man may shumer timing. Why is it telling me when do you become Tani because of Eretz? Now this is a fragment here actually. This is the Carbonata says there's a line missing here. It says that it should be right afterwards. It says it should say Rabbi Simon B'Shem was a quote from Shvius. Rabbi Simon B'Shem Rabbi Yoshua B'Shem Rabbi Yehuda Mishatish Arboim Yom. In Ashkelon there isn't too much Eretz Amim automatically, but if a guy has lived in a house for 40 days, so then it's assumed to be Tameh. And now you won't remember necessarily, but you recall once I remind you, that's because we are afraid that within those 40 days his wife or mistress miscarried and they buried the fetus in the house. And the fetus, once he's 40 days old, actually is Matami. So after a guy has lived in the house for 40 days, you couldn't have to assume that it might be Tameh because maybe there's a buried fetus there.
Is it strictly by Kusa?
What? No, it says here Nachri. I don't think it's Kuzim. I think it's any Nachri. Okay. In any event, could be I'm wrong, but that's what I've seen. Ashkatani b'shem Shem Aviv, it should be say. It said then Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi found the name of his father. Then his father said, indeed, Me'alein Kibul Alein B'Samaisis B'Zman Azem Maisis said only the Rabbanim. V'amar he said, oh, that's the case. Yo, so everything is fine. Danny, we can be Matir Ashkelon because Maitris are anyway Mid Rabbanon, right? Umazon Rabbanos B'Divrayim. V'amar Yos Ma'as Rabbanon Midivrayim Mazon Rabbanos Midivrayim and Mazon Rabbanos Divrayim. The Divrayim Mokin was Divrayim, and this going back to what we said before, not by Ashkelon, I'm sorry, but by the case of the Avodim owned by the daughter, because there's very little property, that the Rabbanan, okay, the Rabbanan, everything is fine and hunky dory. Says the Gemara further. Now here the gears is messed up, as you will see in a moment. If there were males, then the males allowed to eat, and the kavos ein ma'achilin. If they're females, they're not allowed to eat. Now we're talking about here, we've switched. We are talking now about a limited inheritance, whereas a severely restricted amount of property. Now we're talking about where there's property in abundance. It's a lot of property. So the males will inherit. The daughters will get 1/10 of the property, and that's their dowry. The males will inherit. So then the males allow, even if there's a fetus, the males allow the avodim to eat. If the females do not allow the avodim to eat, right? If they're only fetus, so that means if they're only males other than the fetus, the avodim can eat. If they're only females other than the fetus, the avodim cannot eat. If they're males, they can't eat. Now, here, it really is messed up, as I told you. It should really say, Hoyusham the Kavos, Ein Machilim. Why? Shu Safik Echos, Safik Nekeva, Safik Zachar, Safik Nekeva. If there are only females around, and of course we don't know what the fetus is, so there's only one Safik. The Safik is, what's the fetus going to be? Is the fetus going to be a boy or a girl? If the fetus is a girl, so it's not a problem, because a girl doesn't inherit anything where they're boys. So then the boys can allow the avodim now to eat. But if the fetus is a boy, so then the boy has a portion in the slaves. So the boy has a portion in the slaves, and he is not yet a Kohen, because he's not yet born, so therefore the slaves cannot eat, because of the portion of the fetus which is dormant. So since we don't know, it's only one suffix, so it'll be a girl or a boy, it's a suffix, one suffix, with suffix midvar Torah lachmir, a suffix in that case we have to be machmir. Okay? That if there are nekevos, right? Wait. Yeah, but I think I said it wrong. If they're in a cave, if they're only females now, and it's a boy, so he's going to inherit it. I said it wrong. I said it backwards. If they're only females, and we don't know what the fetus is. If the fetus is a girl, so then the fetus is a girl, no problem. No, that doesn't work either. It's more complicated than I thought. Let's look in the carbonator. That's the easy way to do it. Yeah, no, that's what we're getting to. We're getting there. We're not yet. So let's not do with the carbonator. It'll go much quicker that way. Look at the carbonator, the top line of carbonator. Rishon says, if they're males, machilim, and they can the fetus is not an impediment, they're truma. The kavas, if they're only females, then they can't. If they're only males, they can feed. Why shushte sfekos? It's a sfeka. What's the fetus? Safik zachar, safik nekeva. It's a question whether the fetus is a male, which will cause a problem, because then he has a portion, or it's a female, which won't cause a problem. And even if it's a male, safik ben kayama, safik ena ben kayama. Maybe it'll be a miscarried male, which will be okay as well, because there won't be a problem. So shtei sveikas, it's a sved two sveikas, or sveka, midivrei Torah lakel, midoraisik mimeko, right? Even in the doraisik mimeko. Nekevos, however, if they're only females around now, einan machilos, they can't allow the Eved to eat because shu safik echad, so they want safik. Safik ben kayama, safik eno ben kayama. It's only a safik if it's going to be viable or not. Because if it's viable, no matter what it is, it's a problem. If they're only daughters right now, if it's viable, no matter what, it's a problem. Because if it's a male, so that fetus will inherit everything, right? If it's a female, she gets a portion among the other females. And her portion impedes the avodim from eating, right? So the moment, so if they're only males now, so then because it's fake, or you can say be lenient and say, yeah, it's a suffix if it's a female, which won't be a problem. And even if it's a male, it might not be a problem because he won't survive, right? But if it's they're all right now females, so it's a problem because the only suffix is whether the kid will survive, the fetus will survive or not. It's not a double suffix. Because no matter what it is, male or female, if it survives, it's going to present a problem. And therefore, in that case, we can't be lenient. Okay? Says the Gemara, that's the last line of the Gemara, second to last line of the Gemara. No matter what, if they're all females now, it's a problem. Zochru, if he's a male, everything belongs to him. The keva, and if she's in the keva, nas b'chuka imhen, so she gets her abortion together with the other females, and of course that constitutes a problem. Okay, look at that. Ha'ubar, va'yovam, va'erusin. Now, an ubar is a fetus. A yavam means the woman, the widow of a Kohen has a yavam who has to be miyabim her. It's the other way around. Sorry. The ubar is the fetus. The yavam is if you have the widow, a Kohenes, who had no children, but she is a widow of Yisrael, and now there's a yavam who may do evil upon her and make her again the wife of Yisrael. And erusin, if a daughter of a Kohen is betrothed to Yisrael, even if they haven't yet consummated their marriage, v'acherish, and if you have a deaf mute, or who has relations with a Jewish girl, with a Kohenes, or a a boy who's 9 years and 1 day old, who's unfit for Kohenes, for Kohen or Kohenes, and has relations with a Kohenes. So all these cases, poslim, they render the Kohenes unfit, and if they're Kohanim, lo ma'achilim, they do not allow they don't allow the woman, the widow, to eat. Safik shuben teisha shanim yom echad. If it's a suffix, whether he's 9 years and 1 day old or not. Suffix shevish days out, it's a suffix in cases where he's trying to enact a marriage with a woman, whether he has 2 hairs or not. Suffix lo, suffix shevish days out, suffix lo evi. I don't know if he has them, he doesn't have it. Or the following case, Interesting case. Nava bais olav v'al bas yo'achiv. You have a case where a man had two wives. I really should have brought my nachlas fiak. You were bringing to bring it, but we haven't needed it till now, really, for a while. But you have him. It's not. This one's not hard. You have a man who has two wives. One of them is his brother's daughter, his niece. A house falls on the husband and the wife who is a niece. So now, if the husband died first, right? So then there's no evil, because that means after the death there was a tzoros, there was an erva, right? The brother whose daughter was married to his own brother cannot marry his own daughter, right? So therefore there's an erva. She is forbidden to be misabemes, and therefore her co-wife is forbidden to be misabemes as well, right? No evil. However, if the daughter of the brother, the niece, died first, then there is evil, right? Because then, by the time the house ruined or took the life of the husband, so by that time already there was no co-wife who was an erva, because she was already dead. So that's another type of suffix. So in that case we say Tarosa, the co-wife choletis l'mizavem, she does chalitza and ayivum, and the question is, what does that have to do with all these hekes of truma? The Gemara is going to deal with that. On Rabbi Shimon says, bezumi das ladin loke. In this matter, the strict characteristic of judgment is damage. In other words, this doesn't sound right. Shema asu leave so. If these guys, such as an ubar, causes a person to be unfit to eat truma, in one hand, if it's it should be able to cause a person to eat truma on the other hand, right? So again, if we say that the fetus of a Kohen, if we say, well, actually, let's say it this way: we say the fetus of Yisrael renders a Kohenes unfit to eat truma, right? Because she's carrying his fetus. So let's say the flip side, that the fetus should render the daughter of Yisrael suitable to eat truma, right? Because if he can pass a one, it should be able to be reflexive. If he renders one unfit, he should be able to render another fit, right? Again, if he renders somebody unfit, he should be able to render somebody else fit. If he made a masil of soul, if it doesn't work to render somebody unfit, then it shouldn't cause something to be fit. In other words, it should be reciprocal and reflexive. Says Marvios on Rabbi Shimon. It's not a good thing Rabbi Shimon said. It's a logical svara. Why it's not reflexive? What's logical? The rabbis who argue, they say, Heim yochlu, heim yachilu. Interesting concept. We dash in the same word. It says they will eat and they will cause to eat. Haroy lechol, somebody is suitable to eat. Ma'achil can cause others to eat. V'shein haroy lechol, somebody cannot eat himself. Eino ma'achil, he can't cause others to eat. So who can't eat himself? A fetus. As a fetus not allowed yet, not capable, but is also not allowed yet to eat truma until he's born. So therefore, since he can't eat truma, he cannot feed truma as well. Okay, so says the Gemara. Hey, Simon asks a question like this: Hare mamzer. Very interesting case. You have a kid who's a mamzer. And this mamzer is the son of the child of a Kohen. Not of a Kohen, of a Yisrael and a Kohenes. Let me check if that's the case. No, the other way around, says the Korban. You have a woman who's the Yisrael, who's married to a Kohen. And the halacha is that as long as she has a child from that Kohen, she can eat truma. Right? What happens if her child died, but her child had a child? She can still eat truma. Right? Doesn't have to be first generation, it can be second generation. What happened if her child who died had a child who was a mamzer? So it's still considered to be sufficient for her to eat truma. So if she herself produced a mamzer, she can't eat truma, right? Because she's not suitable to the Kohen anymore. But if her child produced a mamzer, and then the child died, So then can the grandmother still eat truma because of the child of the child? You see the question? So Gemara says, yeah. Says the Gemara,
That moms are still a Kohen.
no. There's no such thing as a mom's Kohen by definition. It's a product of an improper union, so it can't be a Kohen.
So
It doesn't matter though.
once you get grandmother,
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. If a Kohen, a guy, a woman's married to a Kohen, has progeny, even grandchildren, who are not Kohanim anymore because her son-in-law was not a Kohen, they still allow the grandmother to eat truma. For that purpose, they'll still consider to be progeny.
grandmother clause.
The grandmother clause, right? So even though she's not a Kohen,
Right.
her
Husband's dead.
her husband's dead, and her grandson is not a Kohen, but since at one point she was married to a Kohen, and this is an issue of that union, so therefore she could still eat truma. Okay? So it says, he can't eat himself, but he can cause others to eat, his grandmother to eat. So why can't here also fetus cause others to eat? It says you lead bias. Anybody born in the house and he's born, but the fetus is not born yet. If that's the case, maybe it will say that only now the truth is if I were making the girsa up, the Korban Bnei Moshe don't do this. But I would change the girsa here. I would say me'ata. It's a matter. Hayol machash and yolid eno machu. I would say mata yolid posel. Let's say just like you're saying that in order to be able to cause somebody to eat truma, has to be you lead by somebody who's born in the household. So say in order for somebody to apostle somebody, we should have to also be born in the household. I'm changing the gears on my own volition here. So me'ata yolid posel v'shena yolid eno posel, right? Let's say that just like you're saying that in order to be able to allow a grandmother to eat truma, the grandmother clause, you need to have a born child, right? So let's say in order to render somebody unfit to eat truma, you also need to have a born child. Now here we're talking about obviously a Bas Kohen who married Yisrael, right? And right now she doesn't have a born child. So why can't she eat truma now? Right? Why can't she eat truma? Because she has a fetus? Let's say just like in order you need a born child in order to eat, you need a born child in order to pass, right? So it's interesting. The Ora Yosher asked a question here, which he blibes shver on. He doesn't answer, which gives I want to use as a basis for saying making a statement. The Ora Yosher says, yeah, but this is only a question one way. Says you can't ask the question the other way. That if the wife is a Israelis. No. Right. If the wife is Israelis. Okay. I'm not sure I want to tell you Bert's question because now I realize how complicated it is. But it's questions on the gears how it's written here. Here's it's written says that if it's born, the kid is born, he allows to eat. Let's say if the kid is born, then he allows to eat. If the kid is not born, he doesn't allow to eat, right? So it said if that's the case, how can a woman was a Bas Yisrael? I don't know if I'll get it right. Forget it. Let's just scratch it because I'm not sure I'm going to get it right. So in any event, so the Gemara asks a question again. Why do you say that the fetus causes psul? Now I'll tell you what. We're talking about a Kohenes who's married to Yisrael. And a Kohenes who's married to Yisrael has to, in order to be able to eat truma, she has to be able to go back to her father's house. As long as she has a fetus, she can't go back to her father's house. I mean, she can get up and go. But she's not going back to square one, pre-marriage. So that's why, even though...
Even the fetus isn't born yet?
Right.
Because it's a Torah Sheino...
Yeah, but it's attaching her, it's pulling her. It's not Bol Olam in terms of being a Kohen. but it's still pulling her, or turns her being Yisrael, but it's still pulling her towards her husband's house. Again, this is all just figurative speaking, but that's the idea. So that's why even though the kid is not born, he can still pass, right? There's because Shani, the Chsiv, it says V'shava Beis Avia. In order to go back to eating truma, if she's born a Kohen, a Kohenes, she has to be able to go back to her father's house. Probably Shemer Siyavam, to exclude somebody who's waiting, maybe should be B'Siyab Emes. And a Kinneret has to go back like she was in her youth, probably Muberis, as opposed to a woman who's pregnant, who's no longer in her youth. Okay? Rabbi Yisrael said, Hadam Raz teaches us, I was just following through what we just said, Ha'ubar also, so Kamamish, the Ubar is considered to have full status, as if he exists, leave soul, to render somebody unfit, Velosu Kamamish Lachil, but not to give to eat. Milan the Rabbanah pleading, the words of the rabbis argue. The Marzira said, Tani Tawai learned over there, Arusa, an interesting case. Arusa, a woman who's a Kohenes, but she's affianced to a Kohen. No, it's the other way. A woman who's Israelis, affianced to a Kohen, right? She can't eat truma yet, right? She can't until she's married. Shomer Siyava. She's Shomer Siyava to the Kohen, but she's not yet married to the Kohen. She was once, but now she's not. She's in between Kohen husbands. Umuberes, and a woman who's pregnant with a fetus, which will be a Kohen. Mishamas is a Karen. They only pay, however, if they eat truma. They're not allowed to, but if they eat truma, they only pay the principal and not the additional 20%, which is the fine. Now that tells us they're really allowed to eat truma. It's just that there's a superficial, a rabbinic reason perhaps why they can't eat truma, right? So we see here clearly that a woman who has a fetus in her can eat truma mikradi, right? Just to prevent her doing superficially that obviously these rabbis are going to previous Gemara say the fetus impedes upon a woman from eating truma, right? So Maracham, what are you talking about? Now this last case, actually the Gemara is going to say that the case of the pregnant woman is different than the two previous cases. What are we talking about? The daughter of a Kohen is married to Yisrael. I feel you let us say men bunny main azarolo. Even if she has already had children from him, children, not just fetuses, she's not considered to be a zara vis-a-vis eating truma. And that's an interesting concept. She's not allowed to eat truma. The rice is not allowed to eat truma. But even if she does, she doesn't have to pay the chomesh. She doesn't have to pay the extra fine. Why is that? Because she has residual kedusha of her having been born a kohenes. Okay, she doesn't have to pay the extra 20% if she eats the truma, right? However, so again, in Babas Kohen Shani Yisrael Filim Yoledes Seven Obonim, and a zora, she's not a zora vis-a-vis truma. She can still doesn't have to pay 20%. So that can't be the chiddush. That's not a chiddush. El Kenuch, you're talking about the following case. Babas Yisrael, a regular Israeli, Shani is going to marry a Kohen. So it says here that she doesn't have to pay the 20% either. If you're going to say, argue in the previous Gemara, Uber also so kemamish lifsol. If you're going to say the previous Gemara, if you're going to say the previous Gemara, that Uber also kemamish lifsol v'losu kemamish la'achil. They only made him like he exists vis-a-vis to render somebody unfit, but not vis-a-vis allowing somebody to eat truma. Lama m'shamas l'keren, m'shamas l'chomesh. Why shouldn't they have to pay the additional fifth? Yisham l'keren v'chomesh. Let them pay the additional fifth. So it must be that you say that women who have a fetus from a Kohen, they're already considered to have the status of a Kohen, right? That argues in the previous Gemara. Previous Gemara said a woman has a fetus from a Kohen, does her no good. She ain't a Kohen until the kid is born, right? But here we see that it's not true. We see a woman who has a fetus from a Kohen, otherwise it'd be no Chiddush. We see a woman who has a fetus from a Kohen is already considered to be, for certain respects, a Kohen. Okay, it says this is a new Gemara actually. Cheresh posel. Now, not just a cheresh pasels, but also a cotton pasel. So what the Mishnah says, and the Shari Teres says next case going on a cotton, not a cheresh. Now here it says ishto shel cheresh. A woman who's married to a cheresh, b'shel shoita and a shoita, and she's a kohenes. She goes to the mikvah after having a relation with her husband, because become Baal Keri when you have relations, even if you're the woman. And then Ochel, she can go and eat Truma. Now it says the Shaitar, so, and the Orsamech also really goes crazy on this Gemara, although he doesn't have a good answer because he doesn't want to change the Girsa. But he says, how can you say that by Cherish? Cherish has Nisuin the Rabbanan. The rights of Cherish can't get married. A deaf mute can't get married. But the Rabbanan, he can get married. And therefore, if a deaf mute got married to a Kohenes, at least the Rabbanan, she should be forbidden to eat Truma. So how could the Gemara say here that the wife of a deaf mute can toivel from having that relationship with the husband because she's not really married to him, and going to eat Truma can't be, at least Mirabbanan Tzasar. So that's when he actually changes the Girsa. He changes it to Ishto Shel Katan. A woman who married a cotton, that's not a marriage. V'shel Shoyt, of course, a woman who married Shoyt, that's not a marriage. So she's Tavels Michek Bailah, she can go to the mikveh after having relations with her husband, who's not really a husband, V'ochelos and eat Truma. Rabbi Abraham married Rabbi Matanya. Charamar, the one said it should, again, the Korban Sharter Zero changes this consistently. He says, "B'katan poithel." A cotton renders her unfit to eat Truma. The Choranamar, the other said, "Katan yibin." A cotton can actually do yibum, right? So, which of course we know that cotton once he's 9 years old can do yibum. If you don't know if the kid is already 9 years old, which case his bia is a valid bia, or not by 9 years old and his relation is not valid, so he's as soon as he's 9 years old, in order to do pasler, if he's unfit to marry her from eating truma, but he's not considered to be 9 years old vis-a-vis the halacha of having relations or and affecting a yibum with her. So we're machmir on the situation, right? Safik shehevi shtei saros, safik shloivi shtei saros, and also if we're not sure if he has two hairs or not, which makes him a full adult, right? And who can marry a woman, it's Kami, and here the Koshaitar so changes it. I don't know how you don't change it. Kami Shalo Hevi Shtei Saras, Shalo La'achil, you have to assume L'chumra, that he doesn't have two hairs, and he can't allow somebody to eat Truma. Okay? Just let's get to the Mishnah. Nafla Abayis L'Lava Abayis Achib. The case here in the Mishnah, where a house falls on him and his niece, who's one of his wives. They don't know which died first. So the Tzora has to get chalitza, not yibum. So it says more of a hacha, a sin on misnei, it should be tzoros. What does tzoros have to do with this? We thought we left this long ago. You're bringing me back again. Co-wives. What do I have enough trouble with this? So that's why you're right. It just got schlepped in it. Begin the tinan here. We put in the word svekos from the line before. Begin the tinan svekos tinan safik tzaros. We figured once a day about all kinds of safik situations. Let's make life difficult for you and cause you anguish, pains of memory, and remind you about another unpleasant safik, that of tzaros.